All right, welcome to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. I'm joined here with two amazing people, Mikhayla Fulper, who's a raw dairy farmer, and my co-host, Tallow. How is everyone doing today?
Good. Excited. I was gonna let
just building the suspense there, guys. Like letting the pause build some suspense.
Yeah, this is awesome. And just so the audience knows, Mikhayla, I think I've known you for close to, honestly, it's got to be 10 plus years. So my sister and cousins started going to Mikhayla's family's 4-H camps in the summertime. And that's how we initially got connected. And then I've been seeing that Mikayla now has her own raw micro dairy, and she's also a fifth generational dairy farmer, has incredible perspective, owns a business. So we're just really excited to have you on and just talk everything raw milk and raw dairy and, choosing to buy from your local farm. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think I was 12 or 13 maybe, and now I'm 27. So it's definitely been 10 plus years.
Well, it's probably incredible too, how you're 27 and you probably just have so much experience actually getting to learn from like your parents and your grandparents. And it's like you said, right. You've literally grown up on the farm and that's just been your lifestyle for your entire life. Right.
Yeah. So I went to school. I went to school for animal science, but the main basis of my learning was all through experience and my dad and my uncle and all the people that we worked with on the family farm. So I definitely know cows and that's my thing. And I'm very passionate about tourism too. So I like, not only selling the raw milk and taking care of the cows, but teaching people about the dairy industry in general, because it's pretty misunderstood. There's not a lot of us out there anyways.
Were you pretty set on, you grew up on a farm and then you obviously probably had a choice, right? Like, do I want to come back and work on the farm or go do something completely different? Were you pretty set on it early on?
Yeah, I always wanted to come back to the farm. I always loved animals. I never wanted to be a vet. Like I wanted to farm. And a lot of people say, that's the common question, if I wanted to be a vet. So that's why I give that little side note. But since I was like 15 or 16, my goal was to take over the family farm and get robotic milkers. So the path changed. The path is very different than what I had wanted, but it never changed from like me running a dairy farm. It's just now I never expected to be milking 3 cows in a bucket milker and on a farm that wasn't my family's, but still have cows in my life.
Yeah. So Mikhayla, what changed for you to decide to go off and actually start your own micro dairy as opposed to just continuing on the family farm?
It's like, it was multifaceted. So I worked full-time on the family farm post-college for 3 years. And the last year one of my friends gave me a book called Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown. And she kind of said, it's really interesting. It talks about maybe like more organic ways, but it's not fully organic. And I was the farm I grew up on was conventional. Yeah, you have it there. The farm I grew up on was conventional and sustainable in the way of like a high input way. Mm-hmm. So I always kind of was very guarded because it felt like misunderstood all the time. But I read this book and it came from somebody who was a peer rather than not a peer and just like judging from the outside. Mm-hmm. And it opened up my eyes to the idea of low input regenerative farming. And I just started getting really into it, started listening to podcasts, and we were not grazing on my family's farm. We're really good at harvesting and making high quality forage to bring to the cows. And I started getting this itch to like, it made sense to me, like lower input, less stress, a little bit, basically the idea of like making the animals work for you and not just being a slave to your farm. Because there's that whole farming lifestyle, which is wonderful. But I watched, my dad and the stress that he experienced. And I wanted the family farm, but I didn't want to have to match his lifestyle for him to have me take over, if that makes sense. You can ask a clarifying question, but so I kind of got really into that. My brother's still on the farm. He's very big into crops, doesn't want to milk cows. I wanted to like have the freedom to either get robots or graze or do both. I was like really pushing that. And at one point I kind of saw that it wasn't going to happen for a long time. And at the same time, I met my now husband, and there was that whole kind of thing too. And we got engaged and found a place about 30 minutes from the family farm. And it ended up just being like, I can see how I can be in control, still have a relationship with my family, but the family farm will continue with my brother. And I can try this new thing without having to prove to multiple family members why it's a good idea, especially starting new. Like I'm learning. So it's hard to convince people that I know what I'm doing and that it's a good idea if I can make mistakes as I'm beginning. So that's kind of what led it all. I just got really into regenerative. And then I wanted to do raw milk because in New Jersey, where I grew up, it's illegal to sell. I always drank it. And I felt like if I'm going to sell milk and tell people to come to the farm and buy it, it felt not dishonest, but like it didn't align if I'm going to pasteurize milk and sell it to you when I wouldn't, even if I pasteurize my own milk, I wouldn't be drinking it. I would be drinking the raw. So I felt like for my values, it made sense for me to do raw milk. And our property is only 11 acres with 5 acres of pasture. So that kind of forced the direct to consumer micro aspect of it very much.
Mikayla, I'm really interested in diving into the raw milk stuff more, but maybe before you do that, in terms of the low inputs on the regenerative farm, what was so compelling to you in reading Dirt to Soil and doing more research that made you really want to go down that path? I know you mentioned the low stress lifestyle, but were there other things that you were considering that made it more attractive than what you had been raised on, the kind of the conventional agriculture methods?
Yeah, well, the thing on my family's farm was when it came to harvesting, and we would put up our forage in a silo. So it would be silage, basically like fermented hay, fermented grasses and legumes, things like that. And fermented corn. The corn silage is the entire corn plant, not just the grain. But I couldn't do that stuff. I was scared to climb the silo. I don't have a mechanical mind so much, so I can't fix things when they break. And it was always, I could run I can run tractors and haul wagons down the road, but when it came to like the stuff that had to get done for those jobs specifically, which are required for the cows, I couldn't do it. So there was that part, because knowing, one day my dad wouldn't be able to do it, he's going to get older, and how my brother didn't want to. That had played a huge part of it, because I was like, I know cows, this grazing stuff makes sense and interests me. So, and then also the idea of there's more, the stress was like a big part of it. I mean, when you're harvesting, you have to do everything right on time. Like I hear not just my dad, but like so many dairy farmers just complaining about the weather's too dry, then it's too wet, then it's too this or that. And it's like when you're grazing, there's still some complaining about some stuff, but it's like the cows have food out there. Whereas if something breaks on equipment and you don't have the infrastructure to send them outside, if a piece of equipment breaks, you're like literally rushing because they need to be fed. Whereas like, it's been a drought, but at least they're still getting some food, versus like the equipment broke and now we have to hand shovel silage out of a silo just to get our cows fed, period.
Got it. So this is going to be a naive question, but what's the actual difference in sort of the operation between grazing and then what you were describing before, which is what your father had set up on his farm? Like what's actually happening there that makes it that much easier in terms of like the lower maintenance and kind of the more sustainable approach and sustainable in the sense that like the animals kind of work for the farm instead of the other way around?
I don't know how to answer the question easily. It's like, and I'm saying low input was attractive to me. It doesn't mean it's easier. It's just, I could see it fitting my skill set better. And it's hard to answer because like there's farms that do 100% grazing. There's still farms that graze most of the year, but are also feeding their cows corn and soybeans and everything else. And there's farms that do a full TMR, like my dad's. I don't know how to, if you could ask a little bit more specific.
Grazing, yeah. So I guess for the grazing, just like for our audience, like I think there's a lot of people who are curious about like the very basic levels of what the low input farming looks like. And it's rotational grazing, right? So during different parts of the year or during, different cycles, you're going to have the cows grazing on certain parts and then move off of that land, right? Do you then go and plant like certain crops on top of that? Or I guess that's kind of where I'm most interested is, what does that process of the grazing look like that you're doing that is obviously, I think, a little bit more of this, full loop of a process instead of having more manual inputs?
Yeah. So rotational grazing is the idea that the animals are being rotated, but the definition is just that. And it could be a farm has 3 paddocks and they move the cows every 10 days, or it could be less or more than that. It's basically they have at least more than 1 paddock. So that's like the better than set stocking, which is 1 pasture and the cows just sit there. So when you start to move them, the benefit is basically like they're going to eat the good stuff. The stuff we want them to eat tastes good to them. So they are going to bite their favorite, let's say it's orchard grass. They're going to bite the orchard grass and kind of avoid this, what we might call a weed, but the cow can still eat because she has the orchard grass there. And then she's going to walk around, find all the other good stuff. And then as soon as that starts to regrow, she's going to come back and bite it again. And every bite, you're taking off the leaves, which are what's collecting solar energy and carbon. And every time you take the leaves off, the plant has to pull energy from its roots. So the idea is you give them smaller and smaller spaces and move them more often. So they're eating everything. They're not just eating their favorites. And then it's more land that you're not on at a time to give it a higher rest. Mm-hmm. And so you go from set stocking to rotational, and then like the top would be like management intensive grazing. And those people who are the ones I'm learning from and like want to emulate, they're moving every day, if not twice a day, moving their animals.
Wow.
And that if you really keep them dense, but keep moving them, without explaining everything else, like in time, it should improve soil quality and pasture health and all of that kind of stuff. And there's nuances to it. And that's what you have to like learn and figure out how to read the land. And with dairy, there's a lot of farms will incorporate this and then still supplement feed, because dairy cows have a lot of energy draw on them compared to like a beef farm. It's a lot easier from my perspective of other farms. It's a lot easier to do all forage beef, basically grass-fed beef than grass-fed dairy. Grass-fed dairy is possible, but it takes a certain type of cow and a really good manager.
We actually have a local dairy farm here in Austin that does pasture raised dairy, and they said the same thing, that it's very, very challenging. I'm curious, the way that you do that crop rotation, do you see that actually really benefiting the health of the animal, and then seeing that in the quality of the milk that you're producing, or like, is there anything noticeable that you see throughout the process that is in turn benefiting the cow and then your ultimate product?
From what I see with my cows is, and also I'm not 100% grass fed, so I do give them grain during milking time and they get some hay as well. But what I see is the milk tastes good regardless to me. So that's good. And I don't know like if there's any specific nuances in the nutrition profile, but I see my cows, they have a lot more comfort and they're a lot cleaner, and I have like no health problems. It also helps that I'm so small. Obviously, I have less animals that I'm working with. So just the law of numbers kind of helps me out. And yes, it's really good for them and good health for them, as long as it all depends on the quality of the pasture, you know. If it looked like a golf course out there and I had them on pasture, but they weren't really getting quality food, it's not equivalent to having lush, you know, 6 to 12 inch tall, like swaths of grass that they go into and get to much to their heart's delight. So I'm in that in between. It never looks like a golf course, but I'm very excited for when it's like lush and perfectly timed every time they move. But I think it's a quality of life for the cows that I see.
And to that point, Mikayla, it's been pretty incredible. Like, I think the last 2 years, it seems like there's been this big resurgence in demand for raw dairy. I think just like with access to the internet and information, people are understanding that like when the milk is pasteurized, it really is denatured. And we've heard of a bunch of people that thought that they had problems digesting dairy, but then they incorporate like raw milk, raw cream, and they feel great doing it. I myself included, with colitis, I thought that I couldn't tolerate dairy really well. And I feel like I can drink as much raw milk as possible and have no issues at all. Do you find like with the customers that are coming out to visit your farm for the first time, do they have some familiarity with raw milk versus pasteurized, or are they intentionally seeking you out because you're a raw dairy farm? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So the people I see, the ones that are coming to me are coming because they already have had it when they were a kid, and there's like that nostalgic feeling, or they have found it through some kind of health crisis or experience. And I've taken the stance, I don't try to teach about raw milk. I feel like other people do so much better at it. So I might share some posts of other people, but what I focus on is the high quality of it, the high quality product. Like for me, I don't have a farm store. I hang out in the barn and people come, and when they tell me I want a gallon, I fill their bottle then. So like it literally is like as fresh as it can get.
Wow.
And they can know all the names of the cows, and they can have their kid go pet the calf, and like it's the whole experience. And just like the freshness is the really high quality of it. But yeah, so I have one customer in mind who I'm thinking of. He came because he drank it when he was younger. So he came because of nostalgia. And he like, it's a challenge for him to he challenges himself to get all of his food from farms. So he thinks that's fun, and he missed raw milk. And his wife wouldn't drink it because she was scared of it, because there's also a lot of people out there who think it's like the devil. And in time, he just kept coming back, and he'd be like, no, she hasn't tried it. And then one day he's like, well, she started putting in her cereal, which is, you know, one thing. And then a few weeks later, eventually he came up to me and he was like, you know, she was scared of it, and she never really drank dairy anymore because she has digestive problems overall. And since she started using it in like some of her breakfast and stuff, she's had like better digestion total, like not just with the milk, but with everything. And I've heard a few people say things like that. I've also had a few customers who have children who say like, when they start to come down with something, they like subconsciously desire raw milk, and like they'll ask for it more and want it. And one of my customers, if she runs out of it before she comes back to me, she might pick up some whole milk out of the store every once in a while. And like, she's like, my son will chug a glass of your milk and like only drink a quarter or a half of it of the store-bought milk.
Wow.
It's really, those are kind of the stories I hear of people just being like, I love the taste. I did this when I was younger. I feel way better. And then like, I want to nourish my children. That's kind of the big categories of people that come.
And I feel like you're going to just continue to see more and more stories, the more that, you know, we continue for people to use their platforms to share about some of the incredible benefits. It's pretty amazing too. I just was looking this up. So I guess at a the average grocery store carries 47,000 products. So it's like when you go in the inner aisles of the grocery store, it's all just processed garbage with like vegetable oils, refined grains, sugars, etc. Like these crazy different flavored maple syrups and stuff. But you can't even buy raw milk in so many different states just because of the bizarre laws that were passed in like the early 1900s. It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And in Pennsylvania, I'm lucky that it's very legal.
Yeah.
So you can actually buy it in stores. It's not going to be in like your local, national chain store, but the local health food stores do carry it, which is great, but also a little bit challenging as somebody. I can only sell on farm with the type of permit I have. So it's nice that Pennsylvania is so open with it. It also makes it tough because I have lots of regulations that I have to meet, but I'm happy to do it because it might give somebody new to raw milk like more trust and more comfort that, I didn't just get a couple cows and decide to sell it. I went through a process and I'm licensed to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's cool. Pennsylvania, I'm lucky here. In New Jersey, it's illegal. In New York, it has to be bought on farm. But yeah, I just want people to have the options. And I'm looking for people who want that option and also want it a step further where they know me and they come to the farm and get it as fresh as possible.
How awesome is that relationship with the recurring customers who show up and really respect the quality of product that you're putting out there?
It is awesome. I mean, I'm still at the point, I'm still growing. So at this point, I basically know all the faces. And so it's nice to get to know them a little bit and chat. And I'll talk to some about gardening and I've had one bring me homemade wine. Another customer brought me homemade bread and home canned jam. And like,
That's awesome.
It's fun. And it's all my different customers are like different facets of me. And that's how I look at it. And it's just fun. So some like gardening and I'm really into learning about it. Some follow the same podcast that I do. And it's just fun. I guess that's just the nature of like a business when you're the owner, like you attract people who are part of you, basically. The brand is me.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm curious. So you mentioned you moved from New Jersey to Pennsylvania and the laws were different around raw milk. And the backstory of that is interesting to me, but I'm also just genuinely curious, like what should or do people have a legitimate concern around consuming raw dairy? Or like, what would the advice be that you would give to someone if they're just getting into raw dairy in terms of sourcing really high quality product?
So from what I understand, like the actual chances of illness statistically are very, very, very low. And almost equivalent, if not possibly less than pasteurized milk. Yeah. Because if it's pasteurized, then it has no defenses, whereas raw milk has some innate defenses in it. If something was present, if a pathogen was present. But what I always said to people growing up was, if you get I don't know how to explain it. It's tough because my mindset has become a little bit more shifted since I've gotten older. So now I tell people like, just give it a chance, and you're probably going to be surprised that it works really well with you if you don't handle dairy well. Like, try this.
Right.
And if it doesn't sit well with people, I used to explain like it's just about the microbiome, and sometimes it needs to change. And I live around my cows and I live in this area, so I share a microbiome with my cows essentially.
Right.
And so maybe somebody might try it and it doesn't sit well with them just for that reason. It's not, I'm never really concerned about safety at all. I trust it, and I trust anything in the store, although I think flavor is better the fresher it can get. And my husband, different raw milks he'll have different experiences with. So it really does come down to just like the microbiome of you, the farm it came from. Sometimes breeds have to do with it. I'm sure you guys have heard of A1, A2, all that kind of stuff plays in. but generally it's safe. And I don't know. I don't feel concerned about it. When I have kids, the kids will drink it. Whenever I get pregnant in the future, I'll drink it then.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was drinking it in his 90s before he passed. I mean, it's just natural food.
Does it have a shorter shelf life? I imagine it does, but also like if you're eating like foods that go bad faster, I think it's probably a sign of that it's more nutritionally valuable food.
Yeah. I recommend my customers I mark it for a week from the day I pull it.
Okay.
I say like drink it fresh within a week. I say that because that's kind of how long I'll have something in my fridge before I finish it. So I don't want to say it's good up to 2 weeks, but I've never drank it out that far. Technically in the state of Pennsylvania, you can mark it 17 days from the day it was milked. So like if you, based on the rules, that's what they deem as good. And then there's also this idea that if it's raw milk, it sours, it doesn't spoil. So even if the taste changes, it should still be safe, but it just might not taste as pleasant. And I've never had milk sour on me because I drink it a lot. So yeah, it sours more quickly than a pasteurized milk would spoil. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I think if it's a good quality food, it's not going to last ages, unless it's like a dried product or a canned product.
Harry's asking you because he's buying like 10 gallons at a time and just wants to make sure his product isn't going bad.
Oh, well, you know what?
That's the most self-serving question ever. I'm sitting here like, okay, I need to do like 4 gallons this weekend. Can I do that?
Well, this is for you. This is one thing I tell my customers. Actually, my one who has the son who I was telling you the story about, I have limited store hours because it's just me. So it can be tough for people to get here. So she'll get like 6 bottles. She'll get 3 gallons at a time. They might drink 1 to 2 in a week, and she'll get 3 gallons, go home, and whatever she's not expecting to drink in the week, stick the other bottles in the freezer. Mm-hmm. And so I always tell people like, yeah, you can freeze raw milk. It's really not going to change the benefits of it. It's just going to, it just kind of holds everything in tandem. Like when it's frozen, as long as you don't heat it, you're still going to have basically all those benefits there fully formed. So you can freeze your milk if you need to.
Awesome. There you go. Yeah. The gut microbiome piece was interesting that you touched on before too, because I feel like it seems like everyone just has like a different timeline of how they can adjust to it. Like both of us started drinking it and instantly our stomachs were fine. And then I've heard some people say like it could take up to like 90 days for your stomach to really adjust to it. So I always just say to people, like, just start small, like pour yourself like half a glass and just wait, see how your stomach adjusts. But most people that I talk to, they seem like they can just start drinking it right away and they don't seem to have any negative side effects to it at all. But that's all anecdotal, but that's just what we hear from people that connect with us online.
Yeah, it's all mostly anecdotal for me too. And it's just, I feel like if people are already drinking dairy, you can kind of just swap it. But if somebody hasn't in a long time, it's almost like just let your intuition tell you. If you're scared, then just do a little bit and like don't force yourself to do something if it makes you nervous.
Yeah. Do you ever have you ever made, I'm sure you have, ice cream with the raw milk that you have?
I haven't, because I don't have an ice cream maker and I don't have the patience to like do like the ice bag trick that we did in the camp growing up. I make yogurt and kefir on a regular basis. I've made butter, but then you're taking the cream off the top. And that's the one thing, like if people would only realize that butter is a delicacy and the fact that you can just go to the store and buy as much as you want, like I think it should be regarded higher than it is, because it takes a lot of milk to get a lot of butter.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't do cheese making as much. I just kind of stick to yogurt and kefir, sometimes butter, but I also like the cream in my milk. So
yeah, the cream is amazing. And I've heard kefir is supposed to be incredible for gut health too.
Yeah. I mean, if yogurt has like 5 to 7 strains of good bacteria, kefir is known to have like 40 plus.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
It's just a different type of fermentation. It actually has what's called kefir grains, which is kind of like similar to a SCOBY with kombucha. Like these grains are little bacteria and yeast balls that kind of look like cottage cheese, and they grow as they do it. And it's the only type of dairy fermented, like dairy cultured product that makes a grain. And yeah, so that I don't know exactly all the reasons why, but I do know that difference of strains.
I'm gonna have to do some reading on that one. Sounds like an interesting dive.
It's very easy to make too. I don't love to drink it. Like I usually will just put it in a smoothie, which I drink a lot more smoothies now just because of the kefir, but it's really good for you.
Yeah, I had some from a raw dairy farm in California, and I think that they sweetened it with like some vanilla extract and cinnamon. Even with the sweetening, it still just had like this bitter taste to it. But you know, it's like you're not drinking it for the taste. It's incredible for you, so that's why you're doing it.
Yeah. Some people drink it straight up, but I don't know how exactly.
Yeah. One of the things we wanted to ask you, so how many cows do you have? What type of cows do you have? And then how much milk can you get out of your cows on average per day?
So I am milking 3 and I have 6 total, including my young stock.
Okay.
Of the 3 milk cows, I have 2 Holsteins and a brown Swiss. And then of my 3 young ones, I have 2 Swiss and a Holstein. So I have those 2 breeds. My family's farm raised Holsteins, and that's what I had. So they came along with me. And then I always had like this affinity towards brown Swiss my whole life. So once I had my own farm, it was like, I can get whatever breed I want. So it was very exciting. And that's basically the reasoning. I had the Holsteins, and then I think the brown Swiss are beautiful and I like them. I am probably producing it depends on, like right now, as my cows get further and further out from when they calved, they make less and less over time. So right now the average between the 3 might be 5 gallons a day, but one might be a little bit higher and one a little bit less. And that's, plenty of milk for me for me to try to sell. So I'm getting like 15 gallons a day and I'm not selling it all. So it's a lot of extra milk right now, but a cow can, that's like they're milking like 40-ish pounds. But a cow that's really being fed for production can milk 70 to 100 pounds, depend if she's at her peak of lactation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of milk.
Yeah. It's such a shame we live across the country from you, because you really wouldn't have that issue if we were within 30 minutes. We would just be over there drinking milk all the time.
I would be thrilled.
Have you found that you have your customers coming to you, are they new to the whole concept of raw dairy, or I think you might have said this earlier, but are they like people who have had it before and just just starting to get interested in it?
It's probably like 60-40. 60 have had it, 40 haven't.
Okay.
And the 60 are either they just realized I'm closer than where they were going before, or they decided they want to go to a farm, or it's like they had it years and years ago. And it's actually, I don't think just the breeds are on the top of my head. So a lot of people, I bet you guys have, if you guys hear raw milk stuff at all, you've probably heard of Jerseys, right? Like everybody knows the Jersey breed. And it's really funny. So they're really well known in the space of people who talk about raw milk, but don't have the cows. And I've had some people kind of say like, maybe email me and ask what kind of cows I have and that stuff. And in terms of breeds, just to say this is like, it's not that important as some people like. Raw milk is raw milk is raw milk it's all good. And some people might like prefer the taste just because Jerseys do have like that. They do have more fat than other breeds, but it's not like one is producing something much different in terms. It still has all the same micronutrients. It basically is going to have more fat. So that's just one thing. So some people might come who haven't had it before and have questions like that, like what breed do you have? Or I heard Holstein's not good. And it's like, no, they're fine. They're just very popular and they produce a lot, but it's all good.
Nice.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I think that is a big misconception. For some reason, there's a lot of information out there. I think I guess because Holsteins are like the commercial cow for pasteurized milk. That's why people say that without realizing it. Because I think I even put that in one of the threads that I wrote, and you actually corrected me, and you're like, no, they're totally fine. Like, I have Holsteins, so yeah.
I'm always paranoid. It's like I'm very pro raw milk, but I'm also just like pro farmer. So I always try to like just remind people of that stuff. Like there's no bad breed. And yes, Holsteins genetically just they were bred over time to be big girls and make a lot of milk. So they're not exactly ideal for a grazing setup, but there's still farms who have them and have them for grazing and do well. And they might pick cows that lean more towards some of those older style Holsteins that are smaller and don't require as much feed, but they're all it's more like about the individual cow and the farm and all of that stuff than just like putting it all in a bucket.
Got it. Speaking of being pro farm, one of the statistics that we heard the other day was that I guess the average age of a farmer in the US is somewhere around like 68 years of age. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know, you're someone that's younger, really leading the torch, leading by example with your own farm. Do you feel like, do you have a good number of friends that are younger, 20s to 30s that are into farming? Like, how do you feel? How does your confidence feel about like the younger farmers carrying the torch moving forward? Honest opinion is, I was just curious. Yeah.
No, I don't know why I'm laughing. Yeah, it's the average age is a thing. I think that's like, I'm the example of one of the reasons why, like the fact that I saw how my dad lives and like he's an amazing farmer and business owner. I just can't do what he did. So it's almost like some of it is I see people not wanting to go to the farm who are my age. So if they want to work in ag, they might work in ag sales, like feed or fertilizer and all this stuff that a lot of them, will kind of go that way where it's kind of opposite of the regenerative model. Because they want to be involved and they want to be on farms, but they don't want to be struggling. Yeah. I see people, I would say if people are going on to farm my age, I see a lot of young people starting something like me, like direct to consumer. But if we're talking dairy specifically, it doesn't happen very often. And it's a problem. Like some people won't want to take over a family farm because it's not much of a business to go back to. The dairy industry is really, really tough. And what I'm doing, hopefully in time, will like be really worth it and be really exciting. Yeah. But to be, have more cows and sell to a processor, you have no control over your prices. And kids who grow up and watch their parents go in debt and struggle, they're not going to want to do that. Right. It's very tough. And so out of all my friends involved in dairy, a lot of them are not directly on the farm. I have one friend nearby, friends, it's a couple, and they are a fully functioning dairy and they do a really good job, and they're actually getting into pasteurized milk because they're in New Jersey. It's like there's good examples, but I'd say the currently the dairy outlook is a little bit more bleak than positive.
Do you see agro-tourism as a way to kind of supplement income directly from the farm, that maybe you can get people out there through, Airbnbs or whatever it is, that people can start having more experiences on the farm and then also benefiting the farms at the same time? And then obviously the farming business is going to be, it is, as you said, challenging at times in terms of, you're just vulnerable to a number of different risks. So I'm curious if you view agro-tourism as a way to maybe de-risk some of these main problems that you run into on the farm.
For me, yes, because I love it.
Yeah.
My family did it on I gave farm tours at the family farm, and we had a camp that was really, really popular. This will probably be the last year of it because of the transition of the family farm. But I think yes, for somebody who wants it, and for somebody, yeah, it all depends. I think diversification is important. So in my world, offering tourism is how I diversify, but other people might get into other animals or crops, or they might do quasi direct marketing as well as selling to a processor. I love tourism, but I know how to, it goes with one of my strong suits. And other people, their strong suit might be like, I'm going to get some chickens and stick it with this dairy operation. And that's just as good. Like, just get some different income streams is helpful.
Right.
Does that interest you at all? Or do you just like the concept of just continuing to raise more cows and just focus on the raw dairy?
Right now, my goal would be to fully sell out of my milk to the point where I would have to do like monthly subscriptions. I'm a little ways away, but that's the goal. And yeah, that would be awesome. And then to do tourism, and I don't love chickens. So I would love, like, if I made a contact with somebody who wanted to, who already had chicken experience, but was like, I'll run some birds behind your cows and pay you rent or royalty or something based off of what I sell. I'd love to like have more here, but not take on that enterprise, at least at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point there's going to be chickens here because my husband wants them too, but I'm not prepared to do them at this point in time.
Well, I don't even know if we touched on this, but I think you said you started the operation 10 months ago, right?
Yeah, I got my license to sell 10 months ago.
Yeah. So you've made so much progress in 10 months. Like, it's incredible. It's going to be incredible to see like what happens just over the next 2 years. Like, who knows what that could lead to, right?
Yeah. And I hope like the word is getting out more, and I'm meeting new raw milk customers every week. And I also, because of the tourism, I plan to push that a lot harder this summer because I'm a little bit more settled in. It was like last summer when I just started selling, but I do farm tours and a milk a cow class. And I offer a farm immersion experience, which would be somebody who does chores with me, and nobody's taken it yet, but
maybe we can be your first customers.
I think it would be fun, but it's also like, they're technically paying to join me for chores, which sounds funny, but it would be a lot of extra stress for me, but it would be worth it if somebody wanted to.
It's a good learning experience. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is like, there's this disconnect on the nutrition front between people's food and the people eating it, right? Like, we've grown further and further away from all the production side of the food that we eat. And so I think there's a massive benefit to getting closer to the farm and just engaging with, the animals, the farmer, and just getting a better understanding of the work that goes into it. I think there's a massive benefit for that.
I agree. I'm like, we can have family members who still, if they're not a little bit more introspective about things like us three are, like, a lot of stuff that people see out there is just so, it blows my mind because it doesn't make sense to me if you think about it. But like, even somebody who has me as a resource, if they don't stay connected with me in some way, like, that you start to just kind of fall back to those, like, what we all were raised to worry about or eat or think. Yeah. It's really interesting. So I love when I have people come and they think something's, I don't know. I just like to share with people that sometimes they have this scarier idea in their head than what it is. And they just have to remember, like, what's natural is probably the best, and that farmers are doing it because they love the lifestyle. Because as we talked about, nobody's doing it to like, it's not a get rich quick scheme by any means.
Right.
People are good people. And even if a farm is not doing regenerative grazing, it doesn't make them, they're all good for the most part, you know, like,
yeah.
Everybody's just at a different stage of, and at a different ability. If somebody's scared to try something, they're not going to try something new if they're worried about taking care of their family. So I just try to make people realize like things are a lot nicer and more wholesome, and like just get close to a farmer. And yeah.
Do you see, this is a little bit of a change of topic, but do you see that with the costs of farming rising, people looking for solutions that are similar to what you're talking about in terms of your production, which is like this low input, less of a reliance on all these different synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, etc.? Do you think that's going to force people more into the regenerative space?
I think it should.
Yeah.
And I think it will for some people,
Yeah.
but it's like a paradigm shift. And so some people it won't, and they'll just, yes, I think some will, but there's other people that just can't understand, like their mind can't see logic in this kind of low input way. It doesn't make sense to them, right? Because you're going to be making less milk, but it's because you have less inputs, and that there's that.
Right.
Like you either, from my perspective in dairying, you either have to be like committed to high input or committed to low input. And the people who kind of straddle both are the losers, like, of that game.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. That makes complete sense.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I mean, there's a lot of, it's more like if somebody is starting a farm, I think they're more prone to try the low input way or maybe learn that way. But if they're more of a background like me, like even in school, they don't talk about this at all. Like this is learned from other farmers. So if they kind of grew up in ag, you're actually more at a disadvantage because you kind of think that one way already. And it's hard to adjust your thinking because then there's a little bit of like admitting that maybe you were wrong.
What sort of advice would you give to someone who's just getting started on a farm, like, or if they're interested in starting their own farm?
Oh, geez.
Maybe just like step 1 and 2, because I'm sure it's like there's a million things that you would probably need to tell them.
I mean, yeah. So I won't answer in the terms of like the business wise, because there's probably even better people to answer that, but animals wise and like farming wise, don't try to do too much at once. Get good at one thing first. And if you have, dairy is like one of the hardest livestock enterprises to do. It's just a lot more intense. You know, you have to milk every day. The cows you have to have the infrastructure for it. So it just depends. If you want to have your own dairy, I would get dairy experience elsewhere first. Like it's not something to learn as you go, because they're big animals and like they have a lot of requirements.
And that's what's so cool about what you're doing too, is you grew up learning from your parents and your grandparents, and then you read Dirt to Soil and you were interested in exploring this new approach, and now you're off on your own testing how this works, and it seems like you're having amazing success. So it's like you took all these inputs and now you're out on your own, just doing something that makes the most sense for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like they haven't started grazing yet because I'm waiting for the grass to grow a little bit more in the pasture. But this year I'm already going to be improving from like last year. I moved them every 2 days and they followed each other. So like one piece of land would at max get grazed 4 days in a row before it got rest. And this year I'm cutting that in half. And next year, hopefully I'll cut it in half again. So yeah, it's very fun and exciting.
So Mikayla, I gotta ask, so your farm is called Fresh Start Farm. Does that have to do with the story from moving from the family farm to your own farm, or is there another story behind the name?
Yeah, I say it represents my fresh start of being a first generation farm, although I'm a fifth generation farmer. And then I say it also kind of plays into being regenerative. It's giving the soil here and this land here that I'm now in charge of a fresh start from before. And my property is actually an old horse property. So horse farms are like notorious for just like sticking them out there, and they just overgraze like crazy. And luckily it was horse owners, then the previous owner, then me. So the pasture had some time to rest. So I'm really lucky in that way. But you can see out there how like there's all the plants that I want. And there's signs that it was overgrazed because of like some woody plants and like the type of plants that are growing. So yeah, it's the fresh start for the ground here too, and improving what I'm now in charge of.
Very cool. Have you seen a lot of changes in the pasture that since you've gotten started, 10 months ago, I think it was?
Yeah, I mean, the cows came here 12 months ago and I've been selling for 10 months. And I haven't seen it, like it won't be a big difference yet because it was my first grazing season here, period. So I was just getting to know the land.
Right.
But as far as I can tell, I didn't make anything worse. So I'll take that as a good sign.
All right. Well, we'll check back in with you on our second version of this podcast when we do this again, because this has been incredible.
My goal last year, I pulled my heifers off in November, and my goal is to have enough feed at the start of November. My goal is to, like, if I can keep my animals on pasture longer and not feed hay sooner this year, that'll be a sign to me that I improved from last year.
That's awesome.
Win.
Yeah. Mikayla, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram or the website. The Instagram is Fresh Start Farm and the website is freshstart.farm. And, the email or contact form is there if anybody has questions. Actually, today I'm doing a consult call with a woman starting a micro dairy farm in Western Pennsylvania who has questions for me, just since I have the dairy background. So I'm always welcome. I always welcome people, not only who want to be customers, but if they want to just get some more dairy farming advice, I'd love talking about it. So
that's awesome. Well, we'll definitely link to that in the show notes too, but this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm excited to go back to Jersey. So now that I can come back out there and get the tour, and Harry and I can help you with some chores too. We'll be the first people to sign up for that.
Yeah, the farm immersion. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thank you for the nice words. I hope I made sense with some things. I know some of it, like in my head, it's all spinning and I'm trying to get it out because there's so many factors to everything.
Yeah, no, you were fantastic. This is awesome. We get a lot of questions about raw dairy, so I think that our listeners are going to find this really helpful. So it's great.
No, okay. This is going to be a really popular one. I'm 100% sure of it.
Yeah. And if you guys find that you keep getting the same question, let me know and I'll make sure to clarify.
We're going to have to get you on Twitter as part of the Meat Mafia potentially.
Yeah.
We need a raw dairy specialist.
I left Twitter a long time ago.
Yeah.
That place stressed me out too much. So
yeah. All right, Mikayla. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. This is awesome.
All righty. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Bye.